public school stadium whenever I wanted to. But I went to Beaumont, and I played basketball, and I went out for track my senior year, and wound up getting a scholarship in track to Southwest Missouri State.
Man, and those were the glory days, and it's funny that you said that as far as you know, our alma mater, Beaumont High School. So I graduated from Beaumont in 2000, but talk about the difference and just the landscape of the community as far as how was Beaumont when you attended to even just getting caught up to speed. What were the changes that started to occur?
Well, like I said, you had Brown versus the Board of Education was 1954. So that's when they initially integrated the schools. That's when I first started going to school with white kids. So when I went to Beaumont was still predominantly white school at the time. And I started school in January because public school system, you had to be 5 years old by the 1st of September in order to register and start school. Well, my birthday's in February, so I wouldn't turn 5 until February. So I had to wait till January before I could start school. So therefore, I graduated from high school in January. So the difference between then and now is you had January graduations, and as a basketball team, you might lose 4 or 5 players. And when I graduated, the leading scorer in the PHL graduated with me in January. He went up to Northeast Missouri to Kirksville to go to school. I went down to Southwest Missouri, Springfield to go to school. So we lost probably 6 guys off that team in January. So you had to have a roster of 15 to 18 guys because in January, you're going to lose 3 or 4 guys. So playing time was a premium, which made competition tough. You had to get out to, because the coach could just as easily say, you're a senior, you graduating in January, you'll be gone when the regional, the district stuff starts. So I'm going to play this guy because I'm going to need him later on down the line.
Mm-hmm. So talk about, so you talked about, and you kind of alluded to just the track and field. So talk about what got you in the track and field, or was that just something that, just by being an athlete during those times, whatever season that was in, you just decided to play that sport during that season, or how did you fall in love with track and field?
What happened was when the basketball season ended, the track coach came to Tom Stanton and said, I need a high jumper. Who's the best jumper on your team? And Tom Stanton pointed me out and said, that's my best jumper. So like I said, I only high jumped 1 year. So I went out as a senior for track and almost didn't stay out because I didn't like to run. And at that time, the track coach had everybody start practice together, whether you was a weight man throwing the discus and the shot put, or if he was a jumper like I was, we all worked to start initial practice together, meaning everybody ran together. So I went to him one day, I said, Coach, I'm out there to high jump. I'm not out there for all this running. He said, well, you jump with your legs, so you got to get your legs in shape just like everybody else. So I stayed with it and wound up getting a scholarship in track as opposed to something coming from me in basketball.
Yeah, so talk about that. What are your thoughts on that? Because we try to develop like the whole athlete here at St. Mary's as far as whatever sport that you play, like your coach told you, as far as you running with your legs, but that's part of just being a athlete. And we try to get a lot of kids at the beginning of the year to go off across country to work on conditioning. Do you think it's a benefit in playing multiple sports that might kind of hone maybe one particular sport overall, or do you think it should be more a focus on sport specific, whatever that you're really into, that you should be working on all year round?
I think you need to, you don't really know what your real talents are, where you're going to wind up. You got basketball players that wind up playing football and vice versa. It's just like I never knew that I was going to be a jumper in track. I knew I wasn't fast. And when you think about track, that's what you think about, the running events. You don't think about the weight events and the jumping events, and I never did. And like I said, I went out for track because the high school basketball coach, Tom Stanton, pushed me there, and Bill Miller, the track coach, wanted me there. And my year, 1 year in high school in track, I only lost 2 track meets. I finished tied for second in the state track meet, and I finished third in the East St. Louis relays.
Wow.
Other than that, I won every track meet I competed in.
Hmm.
So,
And
like I said, you just don't know. So then when I went to Springfield, the track coach didn't think I was going to make the basketball team. So I went out for the basketball team. I make the basketball team. Come time for indoor track season, he's knocking on my door. Hey, I need you out here for these track meets. I said, well, I'm on the basketball team. He said, if I catch you playing any more of that jackass basketball, I'm gonna clean out your locker. So I go to the basketball coach and say, I got a dilemma. I got Coach Steven want me to quit. Now he's a track coach and athletic director. So I got to honor what are you telling me, you know?
Right.
So the basketball coach says to me, he says, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but he said, I'm going to put it to you this way. Years from now, when you finish school and you go apply for a job, you may not put me down as a reference, but you're going to indicate that you went to school here. You indicate that you were an athlete, you're on the basketball team. And he said, they might come and talk to me about you. He said, you know what I'm going to tell them? I'm going to tell them you was a quitter. I was waiting, hold up, coach. He said, no, if you quit the basketball team, I'm going to tell them you face a little adversity and you quit. So I hung in there. I finished out the season with it. But at that time, that little statement there didn't mean anything to me. Now, years later, I had a second career as a special investigator for the United States Investigation Services, where I did background investigations. And one of the things about background investigations are they don't always interview the people you put down as a reference. Because they say the person that's on there as a reference know that they're on this list as a reference, and they're going to tell me all the good stuff that he told them to tell me. My job as an investigator was to talk to somebody who wasn't on that list. So the person that's on your list, I'm going to ask them, who else knows him like you do? And they give me another name. So part of my investigation was to develop my own sources. And that's when it came to me, this is what Coach was talking about.
So let's talk about Springfield in the 60s, because just being, I think, or I'm reading through your bio that you were the first African American to receive financial aid to play sports at
No,
SMU. Go ahead.
Just for I was the first one on the track team. When I went there were three African Americans on the basketball team, 2 on the football team, and I was the first one in track. And then after I signed to go there for a track scholarship, a friend of mine, also a guy from Beaumont, had just got out, who was ahead of me in school at Beaumont, by the way, had just gotten out of the Air Force and wanted to go to college, and he was a track man. He was a sprinter. And so I tricked him into going down there with me. So we were the first 2, but I was the first one initially.
So would you say
when I went down there were 2 guys from East St. Louis, Ronald Young and Eldo Ferry, and they were football players. So
go ahead.
No, so like I said, we were living in the athletic dormitory. There was the 4 of us in the athletic dormitory. You go to classes, we weren't all taking, say, different majors. So we're all in different classes. So there were 8 African-American men on campus, 1 female, and she was studying, she was pre-med, so she wasn't in none of the classes we was taking. We used to never see her. We just knew she was around there somewhere.
Right. So would you say that around that time,
basically that was it.
Would you say around that time in college was like your first taste of going through some type of adversity, or do you think adversity kind of came a little early? Or can you just talk about a time where during athletics that you dealt with any type of adversity? Because I think a lot of times that when we coach, we as parents, sometimes we shelter our kids from so much that we don't want them going through so much adversity. So can you just talk about a time where you dealt with some type of adversity or or had to overcome some type of adversity?
I don't feel I had any adversity per se throughout high school, or I didn't have a lot in college. I mean, I was treated very well in Springfield. I had I tell people often, I had a public speaking class where the guy who was the professor in the public speaking class was also an official in football. So he refereed football games, so he knew who the athletes were in school. So when I took his public speaking class, he made a statement during the semester that the final exam was going to be a 15-minute speech with no notes, except for Mr. Golden. He can use notes. So now I got 25 white folks in class turning around looking at me like, hey, man, what the, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I go to him after class. I say, Dr. Maynard, why would you do that to me? He said, I know you're not going to have a problem doing what I asked you to do. He said, you're an athlete. He said, you know what it is, under pressure, to have to perform and do things. I'm not worried about you. He said, I want them to understand how tough it's going to be for you to stand up here in front of 25 white people and make a speech. So he asked the class. When they turned around and looked at me, he said to them, think about it. How would you feel if you had to stand up here and there was 25 black folks in here and you had to make a speech? So as far as adversity, I had people who helped me to deal with that by kind of seeing things from my point of view, so to speak.
So talk about just the transition of leaving college.
There were situations on the track team where well, I'll give you one particular incident, just talking about adversity on the track team. We had the college conference track meet was in Maryville, Missouri. Maryville, which was Northwest Missouri State University. Mm-hmm. We got black kids from here to go up there and play basketball, some play football. But at that time, blacks weren't welcomed in Maryville, Missouri. Conference track meets in Maryville. Coach decided, I've got 2 African Americans on my track team. We're not staying in Maryville. We stayed in St. Louis, Missouri, got up and drove up the next morning to Maryville for the track meet. We finished 3rd, which was a surprise, in the conference track meet. And to kind of just a reward for us, the coach decided he'd go stop and get ice cream for the team. We go in the ice cream parlor, and I'm, fooling around in the back of the crowd. Guys are ordered. There are guys sitting in right eating and, having shakes and sundaes and all this stuff. I go up and order, and the owner says to me, you can't eat your ice cream in here. You got to go outside. With that, there was a football player and a shot put guy on the team that went to a McBride High School here in St. Louis. He stood up, looked at the coach and said, let's get out of here. He said, don't even pay for this. He took his sundae and turned it over on the counter and said, let's go. Now, when you 6'5", about 280 at the time, be offensive tackle and wound up playing pro football. When you're that big, you turn your stuff over on the counter and tell the guy ain't paying, let's go. He ain't messing with you. So I don't know to this day if the coach paid for those guys that went before me, but we left. I know that. And I'll never forget that guy for the rest of my life. Oh, standing up like that.
That's heavy because and just we can just segue to that as far as when you transition out of college in Springfield, how did you determine what was going to be the next path in life? Because it's not like, when we play sports, we all the kids now have ambitions of playing at the highest level. What was the transition like to saying, hey, once I graduate, what's going to be the next step in my life that I'm going to transition to?
My initial goal going into college was that I wanted to teach and coach. So I was an education major. I took a Spanish class for my fine arts requirements. The professor that I had for Spanish told me, he says, next semester I'm teaching this class. I want you to take this class. So I take it. The next semester, he says, I'm teaching these 2 classes. I want you to take these 2. So I finally say, Dr. Ballinger, what are you doing to me, man? I said, this is about 9 hours of Spanish. He said, well, the language comes easy for you, and I'd like to see you continue in it. So I wound up going from a education manager major to just a Bachelor of Science and got my degree in Spanish because he's pushing me. So I come home and I get a job as a substitute school teacher. That was my first job. And I'm teaching PE at two elementary schools, Howard, which is down off of Jefferson, and Scullin, which was at Kings Highway and right there across from Matthew Dickey's.
Mm-hmm.
I lasted 8 weeks in the schools because I got the misconception. I go in, I'm teaching elementary PE now. There's no gyms. I got a classroom that used to be a regular classroom with some numbers painted on the floor and a dodgeball circle on it. And I'm a basketball coach and helped Bob Cole. So I did that. And that's how I kept my interest in basketball and stayed connected. I'd work at Travelers, get off, drive to Beaumont for practice and go to the games.
That's a natural segue to like my next question. I mean, and we can piggyback and kind of jump back on that question because I got a couple questions about that. But how did the whole process of just formulating a grassroots program as the St. Louis Eagles, how did that come about? Because you got to think up until I guess like the 80s, like the whole notion of AAU basketball was kind of really like really never heard of. So how did you guys come together and start thinking about, hey, we want to get together and start planning to do a grassroots program?
Okay, first of all, basketball and AAU was recognized. It just wasn't recognized in the Black community.
Got it.
See, they would have the tournaments. They would, I got no proof. I can't prove none of this. But the Black schools never qualified. Black teams never qualified. We have the players just as good, sometimes even better. But it came time to decide who was going to the tournament. We weren't going. The president of the AAU, national president, Gussie Crawford, lived in St. Louis. We still got we got nothing, for that. The local organizing committee for AAU always made sure that we was eliminated. So you had Harold Bailey, who was a recreation supervisor for the city of St. Louis Recreation Department, and he got fed up with it. People will maybe remember Harold. Harold was the one who got Lee Winfield the coaching job down at St. Louis U on Brian Grauer's coaching staff as a Black assistant coach. Now, Lee had played 8 years in the NBA and was teaching industrial arts in the city of St. Louis and was working as a volunteer coach in the city. Harold Bailey goes to Rich Grauer and gets him that job. But anyway, to regress, Harold goes to Rich Gray and says, we have teams that come out of Wold Community Center, come out of Tandy, come out of Cherokee. He said, I know they're just as good, if not better, than these teams that are qualifying and going off representing St. Louis. Can we put a team together and would you coach it? So Rich said, yes, I will do that. So 1988, Harold Bailey, city recreation manager, Rich Gray. Rich was working for KMOX Radio at the time. He was the national sales director for KMOX Radio. Guy by the name of Bill Vollmer. Bill Vollmer was the historian for Anheuser-Busch. And they asked me to join that group. So the four of us started the Eagles. That first team had kids from Vashon, East St. Louis, Lincoln, DeSmet. We were, we were a conglomerate we represented the entire city district. Harold says, if you guys qualify to go to nationals, I will pay for your trip. Well, the team won, qualified for the nationals. The nationals was in Yakima, Washington, and Harold didn't have a dime. So Rich Gray, being national sales director for KMOX Radio, talked to Bob Hyland, who was a manager, big time, well known in national radio. And the two of them, along with Bill Vollmer through Anheuser-Busch, were able to get Coca-Cola, and others, KMOX Radio and others to sponsor and get that program off and on the road. But that's how all of that started. Now, there are people in St. Louis that have something against the Eagles for reasons unknown to me, because most of them don't know anything about how any of this started to begin with. They don't know what our goals were, what our aspirations were, none of that. For instance, we decided that we didn't want to take any kids that weren't doing well in school. If you weren't doing good in school, you weren't making your grades, you need to be in summer school. You don't need to be trying to play summer basketball. That was our position. Lee Winfield, assistant coach of St. Louis U, comes to us and says, you guys are doing kids in St. Louis a disservice. We said, what do you mean? He said, who's to say that there's not a four-year school coach out there that sees one of these kids, can put him in junior college, get him through junior college, and recruit him to the four-year school, and that kid's got a better future than you guys sitting around there telling him, you don't go to school, you can't play, and you cutting him off at the knees. He said, give that kid a chance. He said, open this things up for him, just like you're doing for the kids who are good students. So with that, we opened the program up to anybody that wanted to try out. If you were good enough to play, we put you on the team. And we've been around, like I said, since 1968. Rich has passed on, Harold Bailey has passed on, Bill Baumer's still around, I see him occasionally, and I'm here. So there's only two of us left from the original group who know how this all started and originated. So there are people out there with grudges, which I perceive as people want what you got. And if they can't get what you got, they're going to try to pull you down.
First of all, I want to say thank you to, for you giving someone like myself an opportunity, because I think in the midst of, me coming up, outlets like the Eagles being able to be using your talents to be put on like a big stage was so beneficial to me, because just growing up locally, I would just play locally, but it wasn't until I actually got out and started seeing top-notch players all over the country that kind of a light bulb clicked on for myself. It's like, look, it's bigger than St. Louis. It's bigger than North St. Louis. If I say I want this, then I need to be working a little bit harder, just like these guys.
Yeah. Well, that was Rich Gray's initial thought process, was that there are players in St. Louis that are not getting the exposure they need to go to school, to take advantage of getting this education. And so that was our main goal. Our main focus was, we didn't worry about trying to get guys for the NBA or Division I guys. Our goal was to try and get anybody that played on that team, played in the program, a scholarship. And to show you, like I said, I was talking about the local AAU scene. AAU was set up. People don't know a lot about the AAU rules and things. The AAU was set up so that when you have your districts, you play your local St. Louis tournament, then you go down to Farmington and play, and then you may wind up down in Lebanon, Missouri or somewhere. Depending on the number of teams that play in those tournaments, that determines how many teams qualified to go to the national. We wanted to make sure as many kids from St. Louis got an opportunity to go to nationals as we could. So we had 3 teams. People don't know that. We had 3, at one time we had 3 17-year-old teams, and we was coaching all 3 of them. Rich Gay, Harold Bailey, me, guy named Eric Long, and Roy Pierce. We were coaching 3 teams. Now, in order to make sure there were enough teams throughout the district to go to qualify for nationals, we would set up a tournament at Wool. We might have a tournament at Tandy. In addition to the tournaments that were held down in Arnold, St. Charles, East St. Louis is part of our region, to make sure there was enough teams playing in those to qualify.
Because we would always
So
we would always get a medal from like the Ozark region. I think that was one of our the Ozark region. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the Ozark region. So you had to have, I don't remember the number now, but you had had to have so many teams playing that Ozark region in order for the Ozark region to get 3 teams to qualify. So Harold Bailey came up with the idea that we would set up a tournament, fictitious tournament. All AAU was concerned about was making sure if there was a registration fee involved, they got their money out of the deal. So they didn't care whether it was actually a tournament or not. So we would set up fictitious tournaments, put up the money for fictitious teams, pick a winner, and say you off to the next round. That way we qualify. So we would always wind up with at least 2 teams qualifying. So the Ozark region then would set up the tournament so that we could not play each other for the championship. We had to play against each other in the semifinals, so that only one of us could win, and the other one had a chance to be the 3rd team to go. The decks were stacked against us. People don't know what we went through to get this program to where it is now. The hot water we had to tiptoe through and hoops we had to jump through. But we was educated men that understood what was going on. Mm-hmm. Now we found out that if you register as a club, you have voting rights with the Ozark region. So you had people that involved with AAU badminton, AAU wrestling, AAU volleyball, sitting down there voting on basketball issues, and they don't know nothing about basketball.
Wow, I did not know that.
And because of the way they were set up, because of the way it was set up, they could keep that foot on our neck. We found all that stuff out. We registered as a team. That's how we became the St. Louis Eagles Basketball Club. It was because we registered with the AAU as a club and had voting rights. Once we started showing up for meetings, they started moving the meetings around and wouldn't even tell us where the meetings were. We'd get a notice on a Wednesday that the meeting's going to be Saturday in Farmington, hoping that we wouldn't show up. Well, hey, we here, we voting. So, the deck was stacked against it. It wasn't easy for us to maneuver and get to where this program is now. But again, there's people that try and pull us down, talking about what we don't do for the community and what we did here and what we did there, and don't have any idea what they're talking about.
No, absolutely, because it wasn't until I want to say maybe had to be around 2000. I read a book called Soul Influence, and it's just to kind of piggyback off what you're just saying as far as being like one of the longest established AAU programs or even Nike clubs. So can you just talk about at what point did the shoe companies get involved to where it is now, and even talk about some of the trials and tribulations that you guys had to go through with just maintaining a sponsorship through Nike, and then some of your peers in the AAU club scene are no longer here, or they had to kind of switch things up, but you guys are still here. So kind of talk about that.
Okay, Rick, if you read Soul Influence, Rich Gray is in that book.
Absolutely.
He's mentioned in that book. Mm-hmm. We became affiliated with Nike, part of the Nike family in 1996. That was the year that we wound up winning the AAU National 17 and under championship. But we played in a tournament in Hampton, Virginia for Boo Williams Invitation. In that tournament, we didn't win the championship. We lost to the Atlanta Celtics with Deion Glover was on that team. We lost to Atlanta Celtics. And we played Boo Williams' team. And as I said, it was Boo's tournament, and Boo don't lose in his own tournament. So I think we beat Boo by about 30 points in that tournament. That's when Boo made a call to Nike and said, "Yeah, I need to get on this team, this group out of St. Louis." And that was our first Nike contract. Nike came to us, and we finished out the year as a Nike team. We had made promises to Larry Hughes and Justin Tatum and that particular group of guys. Brian Grau was on that team. that we were going to take them to the tournament in Vegas at the end of the year. Well, that was the initial year that Nike had the first, what is now the Nike Peach Jam. That first year in 1996, it was called the Nike Peach Basket Classic. Well, they had to change the name because the Naismith family had a patent on the word peach basket. Because when the family invented the game of basketball, they played with a peach basket. So they couldn't. So Nike had to change the name, and it became the Peach Jam as opposed to the Peach Basket Classic. And we've been with Nike ever since. We're one of the longest standing programs in the country with them. But that all came about because of beating Boo Williams. Boo Williams was a AAU commissioner. He was affiliated with Nike, and he pushed for us to get there. Rich Gray eventually became an AAU commissioner because Boo Williams spoke up for him, and got him in there. I'll give you a little story about Rich being an AAU commissioner. 17 and under tournaments in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Rich is the commissioner. We go down and we qualify and we go. Two things happen. There's a game where there's a black official and a white official get into it while the game is going on. The black official says, this guy's cheating this black team. He started making calls to make up for the calls the other guys making. So they into it. Ball goes out of bounds, and one stands on the sideline, waiting, the other one chases the ball down and throws it at him. Throws it at the white official, throws the ball at the black official. They get into it. Rich is in another gym watching another game. He gets a call over the walkie-talkie. Mr. Gray, you need to get down to the annex. There's a fight about to break out. Rich comes in and watches the rest of that game. That night, they have a meeting. The white official is sent home. He's disqualified from officiating the rest of the tournament. The next day, we go play. They foul Kelly Thames out of the game. What? The opposing coach walks over to the scorer's table and tells the referees, he said, I don't know what y'all doing. He said, but I'm keeping my book over here. That kid's only got 3 fouls. He said, he's not fouled out of this game. And he points up to the stands, and all of the coaches up there watching the game, and he said, see all them guys up there? They're here to see him. Kelly Thames, they're here to see him. They're not here to watch nobody on my team. He said, y'all just fouled him out of the game in front of all them guys up there. So that's the kind of stuff that goes on. I mean, I told that story to somebody, and Kelly said, man, I'll never forget that. Derek Thomas is living in Vegas, Las Vegas now. I think I put that on Facebook. Wow. Derek Thomas responds from Las Vegas. I'll never forget that because he was the coach of the team that year.
No, and you guys can, I mean, you can tell a whole lot of stories of just the impact that you've had on St. Louis basketball, but then even just getting kids from other places and putting them on that stage so they can get seen. Can you kind of speak to that? Because sometimes people may not know, they may play for the St. Louis Eagles ball club, but they may be from another place here in Missouri, but they get the St. Louis love and the St. Louis shine. So what goes into that as far as picking kids from other places just to put them on the stage so they can also get some shine?
On the AAU scene, on the AAU scene, if a team played in the tournament within your region, within the Ozark region, and their team didn't qualify for the Nationals, and they had a player that you liked, you could add up to 3 players to your roster. So we always started the season with a 12-man roster, keeping 3 spots open in case there was somebody we wanted to add to the team. For instance, I just told this story about a couple of last weekend, as a matter of fact. We're playing against Corey Frazier. He's out of Charleston. We're playing against Corey Frazier in a tournament down in Farmington. Corey makes a jump shot, and they were pressing us. So Corey makes a jump shot, sprints down to the baseline, does a defensive slide across the baseline, and backpedals past our bench and said, y'all ain't got nobody over here can guard me. This is in the first half. Man, we sitting there, smoke coming out our ear. We go in the locker room. We tell Tony Rivers, Windmill Rivers, you got the big mouth. We go out to start the second half. They inbound the ball at half court. Corey steals the ball from Corey and goes in and Windmill dunks it. Corey's eyes got big as a quarter pounder. He told us later, he said he couldn't wait to get home to tell Ricky Frazier, his uncle, what he had just seen, because he said he'd never seen anybody Windmill dunk in a game. And after that, we added Corey to our team. Now, Rich and I would drive down to Charleston on a Friday morning, Friday afternoon. We'd be sitting in Corey's house with his grandmother when he come home from school. Go pack your bags, you go to St. Louis to play with us. And that's how Corey wound up playing with us and eventually picked St. Louis U over Mizzou, which, all his family, all the Frazier boys had gone to Mizzou, play basketball and football.
Right. Yeah, no, he told that story last week. It just as far as just his legacy and just being from there and the people in his family that that had influence. And then, but one thing that I kind of want to talk about, because you guys have done, just so much. If you just look across the landscape of just like high school coaches, not only do I feel like the Eagles program prepare us for the best situation of what college is going to be like, because the ideal AAU situation is supposed to be you play on a national level, on a national scene. Once you go back to your high school, you should dominate because you've been playing at such a high level. So when you come back and play high school sports, it should just be, you just fine tuning some things. But not only that, you guys prepare a lot of the coaches. Like I said, if you look across the landscape of coaches that actually came back to volunteer, you guys have done a great job. Talk about that aspect as far as not only preparing young men and women to be the best player they can be, but also having that vision to come back and try to teach the game.
We've been fortunate that we've had guys who wanted to come back and coach. And like I said, guys come back and they come and they volunteer with us. And, then they wind up with high school programs. And it puts us in the position of deciding on the Tuesday and Friday night, who do you want to go see play? Because you got somebody coaching every night. So you got 3 or 4 guys that play for you that's coaching, and you got to decide who you want to go see play. So, but we always enjoyed it. That was one of our goals. That's one of the biggest things that Rich talked about. One of the things he was most proud of was the number of guys that were coaching who had played in the program.
And just talk about the role of even like an assistant coach for guys who run programs and at the high school level, or even at the middle school level. How valuable is it to have a full staff of guys like intrigued and enthused for the whole aspect of the team to work? Because not only that, I can just remember, you, Rich, Roy, Eric, everybody had a role to play when we went out of town on those trips, and it was basically having value in assistant coaching. So can you talk about that? And does a program really need an assistant coach who is there to kind of, make the program work? Or how do you view assistant coaches at this level as far as high school sports?
We had a role for each coach. You had the head coach, and our goal as assistant coaches was to keep Rich away from the players, away from what was going on. If a guy go out and do something dumb, we didn't even want him to know, because he gonna sit him down, ain't gonna let him play. He gonna do something, and it could cost us a ball game. So you had to have him away from whatever else was going on. So Rich was the head coach. The rest of us just called ourselves assistants. There wasn't no number one assistant or whatever. We were assistants, and we did whatever had to be done. If a guy had to go to see the trainer, one of us took it. If we was playing and a game needed to be scouted, somebody went and scouted the other game. But we broke it down. If 3 guys stayed at the game, because one went to scout, one guy would be in charge of substitutions. The other guy would sit on the bench, keep track of fouls, timeouts, and things like that. Because as a head coach, you can't watch everything. You may look around and want to take a timeout, and you've used them up. As a head coach, you don't know that the other team is out of timeouts. You don't know that this guy that they're trying to sub in the game just went out, no time went off the clock, and they trying to put him back in the game. Somebody's got to watch all that stuff and be aware of what's going on. Score with the scores table, the other team, how many fouls the other team got, how many fouls your players got. So you have to have assigned duties for those guys on the bench with you. Somebody might be in charge of your substitutions, keeping track of how many minutes people play, watching guys when they get tired, getting them out. Got to know how many fouls they got. Somebody else has got to be aware of your timeouts. All that stuff is important during the game. But if you're out there by yourself, you can't keep track of all that. You know, you're trying to keep up with, man, this dude is pressing. What am I going to do about this? This guy got 30 points. What am I going to do about him? And you got a whole lot of things going on, but the more help you can get, the better off you are. And so that's where we always approached it. We approached it that everybody had a duty, things that they had to do. When we traveled, we would rent 2 cars, and we keep the head coach in the car with another coach, keep him away from the players. Because if you driving to the game and somebody might do something, say something stupid, and he say, "Man, you ain't playing today," and you're like, "Come on, man, you can't do that."
Right.
So you got to keep him away from the players in some situations. And we recognize all of that. Now I know on the high school level, you don't always get to do that because you don't always have access to that many coaches.
Right. But like I said, the main thing that I feel like the Eagles kind of prepared me for is what life was like on the college level, because you have college coaches that when you go into a practice, you can't get away with just anything, because it's always going to be some eyes on you, no matter what. So like you said, the head coach might be focusing on the guards, where you got some assistants that's focusing on the bigs, and then you have another assistant that's focusing on the reserves. So you never going to be able to get away with just, not bringing it. And I feel like, you guys, did that from day one once we walked in, as far as preparing us to of what life was going to be like at the next level. So you've been fortunate enough to see all of the greats come through the program. Just can you talk about just a couple of them, just, real quick? I mean, it's a long laundry list of pros and McDonald All-Americans, but just kind of talk about some that just kind of, that pop right out at you, that kind of make you say, this led our program into this direction, and even some of the ones that won national championships.
Well, starting with our first team in 1988, that was our first year going to the AAUs. And after that, we started qualifying, and we qualified for every year up until we stopped playing in 1996. After we won the national championship in 96, I think we may have played a couple more years. But at that time, Nike started their own circuit. And we were a Nike team, sponsored by Nike, and they wanted us on that circuit. Nike was only sponsoring a 17-year-old team at that time. So we could split our program up and send our 15s and 16s one place to take the 17s somewhere else to play with because Nike wanted us there. So at that point, we became a travel club with all 3 teams traveling and going to the same places, and basically playing mostly the Nike circuit and Nike tournaments. As you said, we've had players that go through the program that have gone on to play overseas ball and college ball, do all kinds of things. The names are standing out that people really recognize and to know would be starting with the Larry Hughes group, which was the 96 team. It won the national AAU championship. And then the 98 team, we won 2 national championships, 98. The 96 team and 98 team, which was the team that had I think we had 7 guys off of that team. We won the Super Showcase that year. We had 7 guys off that team that wound up going to off on scholarships. A group of them went to SIU, where you went. But I hate to start trying to run down the list because I may leave somebody out.
No, and we don't want to leave any guys out. One, a couple guys that I just feel like, like you said, that group that won the national championship with Larry, and then even just like this era, know the guys as far as Bradley Beal, Jason Tatum, Caleb Love. So can you just kind of talk about those guys as far as
Tyler Hansborough.
Tyler. Mm-hmm.
Tyler was a national player of the year. You had David
absolutely.
Lee. David Lee was 14. He started off on our 15-year-old team, so he played with us for 4 years. Most people only play 3. Most people play 15, 16, and 17. When David played 15s when he was 14.
Mm-hmm. And he was actually on my team, and at the time he was 6 feet tall at 14, and we come back the next year. And I'm asking guys like, man, who is this 6'10" kid? And they like, oh, that's David. And I'm like, are you serious? So
yeah, he was unbelievable. His growth spurt was unbelievable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But not to leave anybody out, you had your Heidi White that played when he was started off when he was 15. And I mean, it's just a laundry list of guys that have gone through the program. Brad started playing when he played 15, 16, and 17. When Brad was 15, I think that was the first year we didn't have a 17-year-old team, because Rich decided we were just going to concentrate on that team, because at that time that was a good group to work with Brad. And the guys off of Brad's team that wound up going, Shaq Boga, played at McClure and was with Brad. You had Roosevelt Jones and went to Butler. Mm-hmm. So I mean, there were a group of guys that again, the names all run together. Yeah.
Real quick, Mr. G, kind of talk about how proud you were to be able to see 2 St. Louis Eagles kids playing in the NBA All-Star game, and not only just playing, starting and really being the face of the league right now. So just talk about that as far as was there ever a goal for the Eagles? But I'm pretty sure it makes you guys proud when you see something like that from seeing kids at a young age grow up into, like I said, being the face of the National Basketball Association.
Especially with this being the first time that they were on the same team together. People don't know that Jason's mother used to babysit Brad when Brad was a baby. Jason's mother went to U City High School. Brad's mother was a PE teacher at U City High School. So, and she played on Brad's mother's, Miss Beal's volleyball team.
Wow. So
Miss Beal would take Brad to volleyball practice in one of them pumpkin seats. And she tell them girls, y'all hit that ball over. If that ball hit my son, y'all gonna be running the bleachers forever. Jason's mother, Brandy, was babysitting Brad. So that's kind of why those two were so close, is because the relationship that Brad's mother had with Brandy, Jason's mother. Mm-hmm. So the two of them kind of together. I mean, it was great to see them get to play together, because, as they said, they've always played against each other. The age differences, they were never on the same teams. And then the NBA, they're not on the same team, they're playing against each other. So for those two to get to play together, that was a big deal.
And just talk about just watching those guys just develop into the players that they are, because I feel like that one of Brad's best attributes growing up was just his shot selection. He never would be considered of taking a bad shot. And now you look at his stat line to where he's averaging almost like 30 some points a game within like the last 2 years, and he's still real efficient. Can you kind of talk about that as far as just how mind-blowing that is to have a guard shooting the type of percentage that he's shooting, the average, the type of points, but being real efficient at playing the game?
First of all, you got to give Mama Beal credit for that, okay? Mm-hmm. Mr. Beal taught him how to shoot the basketball. Okay, so can nobody else take credit for that but her? And she'll let you know, and he'll let you know that she's the one who taught him how to shoot that ball, and he's always been like that. That an efficient scorer. When he first got on the national scene at the Nike
Hoop Summit.
Hoop Summit, Hoop Jamboree that they host down in St. Louis. The guys down there used to say, Brad could shoot, but he didn't drive to the basket. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. And I'd always ask him, who else in the gym can shoot it like him? So he took everything that people said, he can't do this. He went and worked on it. So then when he came back, you can't say, well, all he does is shoot jump shots. Brad got to where he could drive to the basket. He worked on everything that people said he couldn't do. He went and got better at it. To where now, he's leading the league in scoring. But we've had Larry that went to the NBA, Jahidi went to the NBA, Tyler Hansborough went to the NBA, David Lee, Brad, Jason. We've had a group of guys who have gone to the league, and with that, we still had a bunch of guys that went overseas and had great careers that still produced and did things. And those guys all come back and they come around, and we still have good relationships with most of them.
So, and just real quick, I mean, and we can kind of wrap it up, but just talk about just life with or the sport of basketball with COVID, and what do you expect to happen this year with the AAU scene or with the EYBL? What do you foresee a type of year being, and what would you consider a successful year for the Brad Beal Elite?
Well, with COVID, we really don't know what's going to go on. COVID knocked out a lot of basketball activities. For instance, you have the Nike hoop jamboree that's held here in St. Louis.
The Elite 100.
Elite 100 now. Hoop jamboree is what it was called initially. Elite 100, which is the top 15-year-old in the country. Well, that's knocked out. So this will be the second year of not having that event. Well, we hosted that event here in St. Louis at St. Louis University for the last 15 years. So those kids, 15-year-old kids, have nothing to look forward to try to compete for and go to. So on the Nike circuit, for instance, you had the Nike, the EYBL, Elite Youth Basketball League. Nike started that league, and other shoe companies have tried to copy it without the same success that Nike has with it. But that schedule is knocked out. That was a 16-game season and culminated with a tournament of the top. Nike was sponsoring 40 teams. The top 20 teams, meaning the teams that finished first and second in the individual divisions. First 5 teams, they had 4 divisions. So the first 5 teams in those 4 divisions would qualify for the Nike Peach Jam, which was held in Augusta, Georgia. And then they take the next 4 best teams. So, I mean, that's something that's going. Everybody look forward to going to Augusta, Georgia for the Peach Jam. You say Augusta, Georgia, people think about the Masters golf tournament. Yeah. We thinking Nike Peach Jam, what we thinking when we hear Augusta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. So Nike would have tournaments leading up to culminating with that Nike Peach Jam, with the top 24 out of 40 teams qualifying and going to the tournament. So that was the goal every year, was to qualify for the Peach Jam. We played the Peach Jam championship 3 times. We've yet to win it, but we've been there 3 times for the championship. So that's something we always look forward to try and do. But at this point with COVID, we don't know what we're going to be able to do. We don't know what Nike is going to be able to do. They're planning and want to have a schedule, but right now it looks like they may only be able to have a July and maybe half of August schedule versus a schedule which would normally start in April.
Right.
So with COVID, there's really no idea what what's going to happen, because just like the NBA played in that bubble, they don't want people coming from everywhere because you don't know what you bring. You got to play against somebody. You don't know where those guys are from, who they've been around, what's going on with some of those teams. So they've tried to control that, but I don't know. Just don't know what they can or what they plan on doing.
So yeah, we just got to keep our fingers crossed that we'll be able to have some sort of a summer schedule for these kids to be able to get some type of exposure and just to get back to just playing and just being in the gym and being around that atmosphere. So
well, here's what we did last year with the COVID. We had already picked teams and were ready to play when COVID started and knocked out the season. We had 15, 16, and 17-year-old team already selected. We split those teams up. We put all those kids together in one big pile, had our own individual draft, put together 4 teams. So we had 15, 16, and 17s all playing together, intermingled, just like they would have been in high school, as opposed to only playing with your age group. Now you're playing just like you would have been in high school. If you're a freshman, you still on the teams, got some seniors on it. And we had our own little tournament over in Belleville. We went through a Synergy national program, which beamed those games out to college coaches all over the country, which coaches still got a chance to see our kids play in that type of setting. We had a 4-team tournament, played over 2 weekends, and those games went out nationally through Synergy, which Synergy is a program which is used by
all the college programs,
all of the college NBA programs. Everybody uses Synergy nowadays. I first became aware of Synergy when we played a national AAU tournament in Detroit. And John Hammond, who used to be assistant coach at Springfield with Charlie Spooner, was working with the Detroit Pistons. John took me over to the Pistons practice facility, and I'll never forget it because David Lee and his dad went with me. I took them with me. And he showed me the cameras and all that stuff that's in the arena. He said, Joe Dumars could walk in after the game and say, Coach, I think I struggled coming off the pick and roll tonight. I want to see a tape of, how that went about. Well, with that Synergy program, they could go back and by the time he took a shower, was ready to leave for the game, they'd hand him a DVD with every pick and roll play he was involved in for the game, where he'd go home and see how he did. And that's what the Synergy program is now. And that's what we used to beam those games out and made them available. Every college coach in the United States got to watch, if they wanted to, our 15, 16, and 17-year-old kids play last year. And if we wind up with the same type of season this year, we'll probably do the same thing, use the Synergy program to broadcast those games so the coaches can see those kids play. That's the only way you're going to get a scholarship. You got to be seen.
Right. And that's hats off to you guys as far as being proactive, because, some programs may have just sat back and said, well, we can't do anything. Let's just wait for next year. But being in the forefront and being proactive to just let you know, now we can't let a season just go to waste, because a class has to be seen that you guys would do something like that.
Well, we had to, because, as I said, it was 15, 16, and 17. Well, with 15 and 16-year-old kids, you can't lose contact with them just because
not doing anything.
Just because they cancel a season. You still got to keep those kids active, and you got to stay active in their eyesight too, so that when things do lighten up and you're able to put a team together, those guys still want to come back and play with you. Nike gave us the same, under our contract with Nike, they gave us the same gear they would have given us had we been able to play a full season last year. We gave out every pair of shoes, every pair of socks, every warm-up, everything that the kid would have got if we had a regular season, they got anyway. That's what we did with them. We could have put that stuff in the warehouse, in storage, and let it sit.